You're listening to the Speaking Tongues podcast. I'm your host, El Charisse. Each week, I sit down to a conversation with multilinguals where we discuss and celebrate language, life, and culture through our own perspectives. Episode 116, Speaking Finnish. Hello, language lovers. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Speaking Tongues, the podcast and conversation with multilinguals. This week, we're talking about all things Finnish with Saga of Finnish Learning on Instagram. I had a lot to learn about Finland, and I was so happy that Saga and I had such a fun conversation. In this episode, we learned what the word Suomi means and when it is used. Saga tells us about the grammar, pronoun usage, and cases in Finnish, and we learn about the agglutinative nature of the language. We share some ideas about why some people may consider Finnish to be a difficult language, and Saga tells us some of the differences between the written and spoken Finnish. We talk about the similarities between Finnish and Estonian, regional variances of Finnish, and the unique nature of Finnish spoken in Helsinki. Saga tells us about Christmas in Finland, and we learn many things about the tradition of sauna. Make sure you listen to find out which Finnish tradition may help you find your future spouse. And of course, if you try it, let me know if it worked. Big thank you to Saga for this fun conversation and for sharing bits of your language and culture with all of us. If you enjoy episodes of Speaking Tongues, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Tongues podcast on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on YouTube so that other language lovers like ourselves can find the show. And if you've been a long-time listener of the show or even a recent listener, you can now pledge ongoing support for the show on buymeacoffee.com or on patreon.com. And as you know, I wrote a book. My food zine of international language and cuisine, Taste Buds Volume 1, is available now for purchase. Check social media for the sneak peek inside the book and make sure you purchase one for yourself and one for your friends. Links to all platforms are in the show notes. Okay, let's chat. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Saga. How are you today, Saga?
I'm really good, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this.
Yes, absolutely. I have been wanting to talk about Finnish for such a long time. So I'm so happy that, you had the time to, to join me and to talk about your language.
Absolutely.
I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
So my first language is Finnish, and a close second is English. So I've been learning English since I was 2, and these days I use both Finnish and English pretty much the same amount in my daily life. In addition to those languages, I've learned Swedish because Finland is officially bilingual country, so everyone learns both Swedish and Finnish. And I've also studied German, and then in addition to those, I've kind of dabbled in a bunch of languages because I like languages, but I wouldn't say that I speak those languages very well.
Mm-hmm. You know what I've noticed, and I'm kind of curious about, but of the countries, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, it feels like everybody's, aside from the Swedish people, obviously, but it seems like the popular second language is Swedish. Like, why is that? Like, why is Swedish like or do you know, or do you have an idea, like, why is Swedish like the second language that people tend to learn in those countries?
Well, for Finland, it is because it is one of the official languages. So we have to learn it. I think for the other countries, it's just so close to their own language that it's just easy to learn, I suppose. I mean, people who speak Swedish and people who speak Norwegian, for example, they can speak their own language and understand each other. So the languages are so close to each other. So maybe it has something to do with that. I'm not sure, though.
Okay. Is Finnish... Does Finnish and Swedish have any similarities? I read that there weren't, but like, I guess maybe colloquially, are there?
There's similarities in the vocabulary because of the proximity, but they're not related as languages at all.
Right. Right. Totally different.
Yeah.
When I was researching for this conversation, I came across the word, oh, help me pronounce this, Suomi.
Very good.
Suomi. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
Suomi.
Suomi. Um, what does it mean? When are we using this word? When are we using this word? Tell us, like, what does it mean?
So Suomi is the Finnish name for the country. So in Finland, when we're speaking about Finland, we say Suomi. So we don't call it Finland ourselves. That's a foreign language name for Finland.
Hmm.
And it is also the name of the language Finnish. So if it's capitalized, it's a country. If it's not capitalized, it's the language.
Oh, how interesting. Where did Finland come from?
I
Like,
have no idea.
that I'm gonna have to look at that one because I feel like, and there's this push lately for like some countries to have their name in the language, like the dominant language spoken there, in the I want to say endonym, but I don't think that's the right word either. But people are kind of rejecting like the English way of
Yeah.
saying, like, so I think Turkey is going through that too right now. So
Yeah.
I think that would be cool if more countries could like have their name as their name instead of the um, what they have currently.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it would make us all more tolerant of learning other languages because we'd have to learn so many new sounds, right? At
Oh, I
least,
definitely agree.
yeah. Thank you for clearing that up and thank you for answering that because I guess I could have looked it up, but it's always, interesting to ask and to talk about it a little. Tell us about Finnish language. Now, I have heard that Finnish, and I hate saying this because it's like people always say like Finnish, 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 but some people say that Finnish is difficult for
Mm.
English speakers to learn. Um, we'll talk about that in a minute, but first I want to know about the language itself. Like, how are we forming sentences? Is it a gendered language? Is it agglutinative? Tell us what's special about it. The case, are there cases? Are there cases?
There are tons of cases. Where shall I start? Well, it is an agglutinative. What's the word? Agglutinative language.
Yeah.
So we do add suffixes to to the words, and we use a lot of them. So that's maybe one of the reasons why people seem to find it a little difficult to learn, especially for for English speakers, because English doesn't really do that so much at least.
Hmm.
Um, it's not a gendered language, so we don't have grammatical genders. We don't have articles either. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that Finns usually do when they're um, using English is that they drop all the articles because they're useless to us. So,
Oh.
but and also quite famously, I suppose, also our pronouns are not gendered. So the he, she kind of discussion, we don't really have that because everyone's a han. Yeah. So it's easier for us. And actually, I always find it funny when people do usually bring up Finnish when they're talking about pronouns, and they say, in Finland, it's not, it's not a gendered. Everyone's just this word, but in spoken Finnish, we actually use the pronoun that means it. So
Mm.
I'm not sure if that's better or worse because everyone's just thing. So
Do you mean that you, in spoken Finnish, you use the it in the discussion, in the pronoun discussion that's happening now that people are using their pronouns, or just in general?
just in general. So like
Okay.
if I would ask, where's Lisa, my friend? Someone would say, oh, it's over there. Kind of. It sounds really wrong in English,
Mm.
but in
Mhm.
Finnish it's quite normal.
So in Finnish, when you are referring to something that would be an it, like a table, a chair, an animal, is there a distinction that way between like a person it and a thing it, or is everything just it?
No, it's the same word basically.
Oh my goodness, this is such a joy because I struggle with pronouns when I'm learning, other languages and especially like object and indirect objects and, having to learn all these things. So Just having one word for everything. Wow.
Exactly.
Oh, I like this. I like this. So give us an example of the agglutinative nature of Finnish and how we would build words or sentences with this feature of Finnish.
Mm. Well, I think one of the most known examples is this word, which is a sentence in itself, which is juoksentelisinkohan. So that's one word, and it means basically, I wonder if I should run around aimlessly. Not a very useful word, but still. So basically how that's built up is juosta is to run, juoksen is I run, juoksentelen means I run around aimlessly, juoksentelisin means I would run around, I should run around, and juoksentelisinko is do I or should I run around, would I run around, so it's a question, and then we add the han at the end, juoksentelisinkohan, which adds this I wonder feature. So I wonder if I should run around aimlessly.
Oh my gosh. I like that. I'm so fascinated with languages that do that because, obviously we don't have that at all in English, but like to me, I've started looking at languages not to downplay or trivialize, but I love puzzles, right? So I start to look at languages and when they have features that I'm not accustomed to, I look at it like a brain exercise, like a challenge. And I think it's like or like a word game,
Yeah.
and I think it's so interesting when languages do that. Like, that's so cool. It's
I agree, and I kind of feel the same about languages where if I'm learning a new language and then especially when it comes to the grammar, when I can tell that, oh, this grammar suffix or something means this thing, and so I'm reading a sentence and I can understand it, and I feel like I'm being let in on a secret. Like
yeah.
I'm cracking a code or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, definitely cracking a code is like you said it perfectly. That's exactly how I feel. Oh, I love it. I mentioned before, that a lot of people, who are these people? Like, I don't know them. I don't mean to speak for all of them, but when I look at this is one thing that I don't like when you look at like the most difficult languages in the world and like, there's like Hungarian and there's Finnish and there's what's the other one? Armenian is up there on these lists. And I just think it's unfair because for whom is this difficult when there are millions of people who have been speaking this, for centuries from birth.
Exactly.
So like it's just I don't like it, but and you touched a bit on it earlier, but like with Finnish, like what do you think or what have you encountered or what have you heard people say makes Finnish make this list of, quote unquote difficult languages? Like what is it characteristically about the language that would make people think that?
That is a very interesting question, and like I always think about that as well. I do get a lot of questions from people like, is it really that difficult, and how long does it take forever to learn, and all these kinds of things. I think the first thing is that those lists are usually built, like you said earlier, based on English speakers' experiences. So if a language is very different from English, it's bound to be more difficult, and that's the case with Finnish as well. So I think the biggest reason why people say that it is difficult is because it doesn't resemble any other language that they know.
Mm.
So it's very difficult to, well, I don't want to say difficult, but it takes more to, for example, memorize vocabulary because you can't relate it to something else because it doesn't sound like anything else that you know. So I think that is
Right.
the main thing. There are features, like other features as well. The grammar is complex, that is true. And like I said, we have a lot of cases. And then there's also a difference of whether the word is in plural or singular. So then the rules are a little different. So there is a lot of rules to learn if you want to kind of quote unquote perfect your Finnish.
Mm.
But I think it also depends on what your goal with the language is. So if you want to be perfect, well, yeah, you're going to have a lot of pressure, as with any language.
Yeah.
But if your goal is just to communicate, you don't need to be perfect with all of those.
Mhm.
We understand. And I feel like Finns are very good at understanding sort of broken Finnish, in that we can guess what you're meaning because we want to help.
Yeah.
Because we know that Finnish is not the first language to learn for a lot of people. So if someone puts in the effort to learn it, like we want to help, and we're really happy that people are learning it. I think also sometimes the pronunciation might be difficult, again, depending on what language you're coming from. But we have sounds like the R is actually like a rolled R, so r, that kind of a sound. Exactly.
Oh.
So for some people, that's really difficult. And then we have these frontal vowels like a, u, that some people find really difficult. And they don't really, I think it's not that so much that they can't produce it. It's just they can't figure it out mentally, how to produce that sound sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And one issue is also that the spoken Finnish and the written Finnish are quite different.
Really?
Yes. So when you learn, because usually if you're learning the language, you learn the written Finnish, which is the official language. And then you come to Finland and you go to the store and you don't understand anything because people are speaking so differently. So that's something that also a lot of people have told me, like, why didn't anyone tell me that I am learning the wrong Finnish now?
Now, how do they differ? I mean, is it like the vocabulary is different? Are people just speaking more quickly or using more like slang? Or is it like how different is it?
The words are shorter,
Okay.
and the grammar it's simpler, and in some cases a little different as well. So the words definitely resemble each other. They're not completely different in that sense, but because they're a lot shorter, it can be very difficult for people to kind of make the connections between them. So, for example, a tram is in sort of the written Finnish, the standard Finnish, it's raitiovaunu.
Raitiovaunu.
But
Okay.
in spoken Finnish, we say ratikka.
Ratika.
Yeah, so it's shortened. And yeah, a lot of words in Finnish are quite long, so we tend to make them a lot shorter in that way.
Interesting. I'm just imagining being like in Helsinki, having learned a little bit of Finnish and trying to get around and realizing, okay, I have to go there for the tram or I have to go here for the exit or something, and then asking directions and getting completely turned around, maybe, or just having to pay really really having to pay attention to understand that the person is shortening the words that I've learned for tram or etc.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you would ask where is the tram, for example, in written or the standard Finnish, it would be anteeksi, missä on raitiovaunu. And then in spoken Finnish, we might say anteeksi, missä on raitiovaunu. So it has the same words, but anteeksi becomes anteeksi, and missä, which is where, becomes miss. So it's just like shortened. It does make sense kind of when you see it, but in the moment it is very difficult at times to like try and sort of suss it out. But I think that's an issue with, well, it's not an issue, but I think it is something that happens with all languages, where when you don't speak it that well, all speech that you hear just sounds like one continuous sort of sentence, and you can't hear the differences between like where does one word end and another one begin. So that's kind of, it happens everywhere.
Yeah. That was definitely my issue with French for such a long time. And I was really so lost because I would just listen to people. I'm like, oh, they're speaking another language. And I'm like, okay, brain, like focus. But it just came out as like one long like soliloquy, and I would be so frustrated because I needed to understand, I wanted to understand, and I just couldn't. So I was focusing, I have been focusing on comprehension for the past maybe almost year and a half, over a year and a half. And the smallest thing, the fact that I can discern words in another language is like, I want to throw a party because it's such a small thing, but it's such a big step for me,
Absolutely. I think it's a huge step because that's Exactly. That's what happens when you suddenly start making sense of, oh wait, here's one word and now it ends and now another one begins. That's
Mhm.
like that's a great thing. It's an amazing thing. So definitely
Yeah.
throw that party.
Please come, you're invited.
Oh, thank
Another thing I learned when I was researching this, silly American, not understanding. I like knowing where things are, but not understanding regional terms, that Finland is not Scandinavian
Correct.
and doesn't share, as you said, doesn't share similarities with any of its neighboring, well, with Swedish, with Norwegian, with, Scandinavian languages.
Mm, mm.
But does have in common with Estonian
Mm-hmm.
and Hungarian.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna what I know about Hungarian, and I hate that I had Hungarian on that list too of like quote difficult languages, because it's like it's not helping me to like it's not helping the case that I'm trying to say no, there's no such thing as a difficult language. But have you noticed with Estonian, with Hungarian, or with Sami is another one. What do you know about Sami? Do you want to talk about Sami at all? I don't want to assume that you do or don't.
Well, I don't know about Sami that much.
Okay.
I mean, we have in Finland, we have news in the Sami language, for example, or one of the languages. So if I do ever catch that, I do understand some of it. So there are like vocabulary is similar to some extent, but I don't know enough of it to like say how
Okay.
the other features, if the grammar is
Okay.
similar or anything like that.
All right.
I do know that Karelian is very similar, or the different
Brilliant.
Karelian languages. Do you know where
Hmm.
Karelia is? So
I don't.
it's the area between Finland and Russia. It used to be,
Oh,
yeah, it used to be part of Finland. Now it's part of Russia.
okay. Mm.
we may want to not talk about
Yeah.
that. Considering.
Yeah. So where do you notice similarities with if you have been, exposed to other similar languages, like where do you notice any similarities maybe with Estonian or with Hungarian at all?
Well, I've also heard a lot of people say that Finnish and Hungarian are very similar, or
Hmm.
in terms of where the languages sort of separated in terms of history. But any Hungarian that I've heard, I cannot understand.
Mm.
So I think it's more of the grammar is similar, but because there is distance between the countries,
Yeah.
the like the vocabulary isn't. Whereas with Estonian, I can understand a lot of it, and
Mm.
Estonians definitely understand a lot of Finnish.
Hmm.
So, and that's, I think, because of the vocabulary. So again, we're so close to each other. There's a lot of, a lot of Estonians come to Finland, a lot of Finns go to Estonia. So there's been a lot of exchange in terms of vocabulary. And it's quite interesting that also sometimes there are words in Estonian that sound like Finnish words, but they don't mean the same thing. So
Oh.
there's kind of potential for grave misunderstandings
Oh
at
no.
times. There, for example, well, this is just funny to me, but the first time I heard the Estonian word for wedding, I laughed, and I shouldn't have, that's very bad, but it was just funny to me because in Estonian, wedding is
Five.
pulmapäev, and
Okay.
päev means day, in Finnish, päivä, so those are very
Five.
similar.
Okay.
However, pulma in Finnish means a problem. So it's a problem day in Finnish, which I don't know what that says about marriage, but
Depends on what kind of wedding you're having.
exactly.
Gosh, how funny. How interesting. I like those kind of like false friends
hmm
um kind of words. I don't know. I'm just so fascinated by everything.
Languages are so fascinating. Like they're so cool.
Yeah. We talked about how written and spoken Finnish, how they are different. I would love to know, how does Finnish, I guess spoken Finnish, how does it change throughout Finland, like north to south, east to west, city to country? Are there dialects? Are there places where Finnish is more influenced by another language than maybe in another place, etc.? What do you know about how Finnish changes throughout the country?
Well, there are definitely regional dialects, and that is also one of the reasons why it can be difficult to learn spoken Finnish, because we don't have a standard spoken Finnish. So you can't really like teach well, you can give some rules and say that this is usually how it goes, but it really varies from area to area and from person to person even. We do have regional, like I said, regional dialects where the words and the endings are a little different. Usually they're made kind of longer in the regional dialects. For example, where I come from, which is the southeastern part of Finland, we say, well, for example, forest in Finnish, in kind of standard Finnish, is metsä, but
Metsä?
we say metta.
Metsä.
So we
Oh,
kind
okay.
of just double the T and drop the S there. I think the clearest difference where you can like very easily and kind of easily also learn it and hear it is in the pronouns. So the pronouns differ from area to area. So again, the standard kind of written Finnish I is minä.
Minä.
Yeah. And then the quote unquote standard spoken Finnish version is mä.
Mä. Oh.
Yeah. But then in southeastern Finland, we say mie.
Mie.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then in the area and the city that, or the kind of, city, town area where I'm from, we actually say mie.
Yeah.
So it's even like broader. It's not
Yeah.
it's kind of almost like an a sound.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then in some places they say mä instead of mä. So it kind of gets lengthened
It's
like
really
that. And,
drawn out. Nah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'm sure there are, forms that I don't even know about. But yeah, there's a lot of variation in that way, and people can usually. I'm really bad with this, so I can't place people based on their dialect, but a lot of Finns can, and they're like, oh, you're from there, and oh, you're from there. Like when I moved to Helsinki, I've been living here for, I think, 10 years now. When I first arrived, people would say like, oh, you speak it's so cute how you're speaking. Like, where are you from? Like they could immediately tell that I'm not from Helsinki. And it was always really annoying. So, like, for some reason, my dialect sounds very cute to people.
Oh.
But I guess there are worse things to be called, but
I was thinking that too. Like, it's better to be cute than, people being repulsed by your accent in any way.
Exactly.
So Helsinki, I know, is the capital of Finland. Is it the big city? Is it like the cosmopolitan city in Finland?
Yeah, as cosmopolitan as you can get in Finland, but yes. It is the most international city as well.
Okay.
And you will hear a lot more various languages here. You can see people from different countries and meet people from different countries a lot more than you could elsewhere. But that doesn't mean that we have people from everywhere living everywhere in Finland.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of most international place would be Helsinki, yeah.
Okay. I know that in larger cities, the language tends to be spoken differently than it is in other parts of the country, or maybe even like surrounding suburbs of the or surrounding, maybe it's not suburbs, but surrounding areas, regions of like the biggest city. And I know, in New York City, like we speak so much differently than people in what would be the next big city, big Boston or Philadelphia or etc. It doesn't matter. It's not about me. But how does Finnish spoken in Helsinki, how is that unique? Like what do you notice feels unique or sounds unique about how Finnish is spoken in Helsinki?
I think the kind of the Helsinki version of the spoken Finnish that is kind of considered the, again, quote unquote, standard spoken Finnish. So that's the one that kind of doesn't have any regional features in it. But we do have a specific sort of capital language, which is called stadin slangi. So it's like a slang, like a capital slang. And that is, again, it has a lot of influences from, it's kind of a mixture of Finnish, Swedish, and Russian.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of words. It's the grammar is Finnish. So when people speak that, I get that they're speaking technically Finnish, but I don't understand it because the words just don't make sense to me. But yeah, and some words have sort of bled from that slang to kind of general speech as well. So the city center, which in kind of quote-unquote normal Finnish would be just called keskusta.
Keskusta?
Yes. So in the slang, it's called study. Study.
Study.
Yeah. It comes from the Swedish stad, which means city.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's like, we can say, mä menen studying, I'm going to the city center. Mä menen keskustaan would be the normal kind of spoken Finnish. And same then with, let's say, like I was talking about the tram. Well, in the slang, tram is called spora.
Spora.
So normal Finnish, ratikka, but then slang, spora. And that's a completely different word.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that comes also from Swedish, which is, in Swedish, it's spårvagn. So there's a lot of this kind of words. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so cool. I think that's cool. What is it like in Helsinki? What's life like in Helsinki? What's there to do? What's there to see? What are we enjoying when we come visit?
There's a lot to do in Helsinki. I'm a homebody, so I don't do much. But
Me too.
but there are a lot of theater shows, a lot of concerts, things like that happening, and especially if you come during the summer, so there's a lot of like open air events, lovely restaurants, things like that to visit. During the winter, it's cold and slushy, and everyone stays inside. Well, not always. During bad years when it's not a good winter, but when it's a good winter, it's lovely and snowy, and the snow makes everything look brighter and kind of very. I love Christmas, so it makes everything look very Christmassy. And then you have Christmas markets, and you drink glögi, which is like a glue wine thing in Finland, and it's wonderful.
What is Christmas like in Finland? I imagine it's a wonderland, like Santa's village.
Oh yes. On a good year, when we have a lot of snow, it's perfect. It is beautiful. I love snow so much. So yeah, we have like, and it's like, of course it's dark all the time, but then you have all the lights. So they're like, the lights are twinkling everywhere. It's dark, but then the snow is also like shining, and you can build snowmen, and you can make snow angels and all these kinds of things. So it's really nice. And we always, we have sauna. So sauna is a huge thing in Finland. We do that any holiday, we have sauna. So
Yeah.
that as well. Yeah.
So
it's really great.
sauna is the Finnish gift to the world. Like it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we like, what is the way, if you know, what is the way to experience sauna or to do sauna? Like, I hear the word, and people hear people say sauna, and in my head I'm training myself to say sauna because I'm trying to be a better human, trying to be a better human being. But even I see it, and I see people going in and coming out, and I see it on TV, and what people do on TV. But in the Finnish tradition, like what does it entail?
Well, first of all, you go to sauna naked.
Okay.
That's usually different in every other country. You're always like wearing swimsuit or something like that. But we usually have them separated. So, you have women's sauna and you have men's sauna, unless you're like, it's a family circumstance, in which case no one cares.
Okay.
And usually sauna is it's a lot hotter than in many countries. So it is actually really warm. It's not just like a slightly warm room. Like it can get really hot. And you throw water onto the stones, and kids especially like to do that, where they throw as much water as they can, and then they see who can stay in sauna for the longest, and who gets like, your skin gets really pink because it's like burning.
Oh no.
But that's what kids do. But usually you don't go that hot with it. But I mean, it can be a whole thing where like you can have sauna for like hours, which means, of course, not that you're sitting there for hours, but you go in, you sit there for a little bit, then you come outside, especially if it's summer, so you can sit out. It's not too cold out, so you can like sit there. If you're at the cottage and you're like next to a lake, you might go swimming in the lake, naked, of course. And then you go back into the sauna and you repeat that as long as you want.
Whoa.
So that's like
That's
a very,
cool.
very normal kind of a summer thing, or very, well, I would say very stereotypical Finnish summer thing to do.
So when people participate in sauna, well, first of all, I don't want to assume that everybody does it, but is it very, very common? Like you're most likely, like many of the people in your circle will take sauna?
Yeah, it is very common. It's common to the extent that all, well, the majority, if not all, like apartment buildings have a communal sauna in the basement.
What? Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
It's like it's a requirement. We can't live without it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. If we had that here in New York, the rent would be so much more expensive that would be an amenity. It wouldn't be seen as a necessity. Oh, that's amazing. So like, okay, now I have so many questions.
Go ahead.
Like, do you have to book time to use the sauna in the base, like in the building?
So usually they have like a communal time when anyone can go, but that's again separated by gender usually, and they call it lenkkisauna.
Sauna.
Lenkki means like a jog, so kind of for joggers. If you go jogging, then you want to have sauna afterwards, but jogging is not required. You can go even without jogging, but that's just what they call it, lenkkisauna. And then you can book the time. Usually people have, like in my apartment building, there are a few families who have like a weekly time, and then they pay extra for it to have that.
How often do people typically go? Like in the building? Okay, wait, no, I have a better question. Do people utilize the ones in their building before they would utilize one that's like in the city center, or off site someplace else? Or it, and I'm thinking of it like if you had a building with a gym in the basement, like you might use the one in the building like sometimes, and then you use the one that you pay for, or like a different one, maybe that's close to work or closer to your wherever, or maybe they have different services there. Is it something like that? Do people frequent both or more than one, or like how does it work?
I think people usually use the one that's close to home. It's not really something that we do to, like, on our way to work or on our way from work. So it's a relaxation thing, and so you don't want to have to like get clothes on afterwards and then still travel somewhere. So you'd rather go to the one that's in your building, or in a lot of like new apartments you even have your own sauna. So then you can use that one without any rent or anything like that for that.
In your own apartment?
Yes, a lot of apartments do, especially new ones now.
How big are these apartments, Saga? I feel like
very big. I mean, honestly,
okay.
The sauna, the smallest ones seat one person.
Okay.
So they're like closets, basically. But
Right.
it's just a necessity for a lot of people, so they're willing to sit in a hot closet.
I feel like I'm in a sauna right now. I'm in my closet and I'm burning up in here.
Yeah.
And it's August. Not to trivialize the tradition, but
Of course. Yeah, no worries.
it's not the same. Um,
Honestly,
okay.
sometimes it feels like that even here when we've had like heat waves, which are not heat waves for anyone else in the world, but for us it is. Yeah, it feels like your whole apartment is a sauna. And we do say that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it feels like I'm in a sauna. So you're not
Wow.
trivializing anything, don't worry.
When so when you come out of the sauna and like well, this is maybe a completely different question altogether, but I've never been in a sauna, like legitimately in one, aside from this hot walk-in closet. Um, but like for Finnish people, or for people not they don't have to be Finnish, but people living in Finland, who do partake in the sauna tradition, like what are the reasons for doing it? What are the benefits? What are the feelings? Like you said, it was part of relaxation. Is that mainly it, or are there other reasons that people would take a sauna?
I think for a lot of Finns or people who have grown up in Finland, it's just a habit that you do,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very good for your circulation. It's good for your skin. So those are, I mean, but I think those are just sort of side benefits. More of it is just like, well, we just do it. Like, why wouldn't you? Kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And then if it's good for you, nice. But like, yeah, I think it's very relaxing, and I think that's the main point. And also if you're with your family, it's also like spending time together, or you can go to sauna with your friends or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So it is also kind of a communal thing in that
Yeah.
sense for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's so cool. Oh, I'm ready to come to Finland now.
Please do.
Are there any other traditions that, or maybe some that you really like, or love, that are beloved to you, in Finnish culture, and anything that maybe you'd want people to know about? And, maybe for the people who just think sauna, Finland, like what else? What else? What other traditions or cultural things do you think are interesting?
Sauna is that's the biggest thing, and I think kind of easiest for people to also understand. And I feel like a lot of like traditions that we have, they're not like traditions with a capital T kind of a thing. It's just like normal small things um like catching the first snow, when it's like
Mm,
snowing outside and you kind of feel like winter's here in a way. And like it's not a tradition, you don't really do anything specific, but that's just kind of the feeling like okay, winter's arrived. And well, I think also, especially when it comes to one of the big holidays that we have is midsummer. And that has a lot of like, I'm gonna sound really weird, but it has like a magic a component. So we do a lot of like, these days, of course, it's just for fun, but we do like spells and things like that, or you can do if you want to.
fun. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the like, especially the old Finnish culture, it has a lot of this like magic imbued in it that I think these days a lot of people have forgotten about and don't really talk about so much. But midsummer is one where we light a big fire which we call kokko, and it's again, we do that because we've always done it, but the reason for that is to kind of, I think, to keep the bad spirits away or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then one, my kind of favorite midsummer spell, which has never worked for me. I don't know what that says about me, but you have to pick 7 different flowers, and then you put them under your pillow. And then it says that when you sleep, you're going to see your future spouse in your sleep.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Number one, when is midsummer? What day what days are these out of the year?
Well, it depends. I think it changes every year.
Okay.
Not the Because basically for us the holiday itself, we kind of put it where it's like weekend but it's the sort of original midsummer is it called summer solstice? So basically the lightest day, the longest day of the year.
The 21st of
Yes,
June.
yes.
Yeah.
And then our kind of the midsummer, because we all get time off from work for midsummer. So then that's like the weekend around that time.
I'm in the wrong country. What kind of flowers do you have to pick, or like
any wildflowers?
Any wildflowers?
Yeah.
Okay. 7 of them
7,
under your
yes.
pillow, future spouse. Okay.
Yes.
Have you known this to work for anyone in your circle?
Not my circle, but I think it might also be that we're all too far removed from nature because we live in the city.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I think like especially with like, we've just come so far away from like elder medicine and like bush medicine and like, knowledge of nature. So I feel like, we try to be mystical and try to make it work. And it's like, how is it going to work when there's like so many artificial streetlights on shining directly into my apartment?
Exactly. I think that is maybe one thing when you were asking about the traditions. It's not really a tradition, but it's a huge part of being Finnish and being in Finland, and that is nature. So going into forests, we go berry picking, we go mushroom picking, we walk in the forests a lot. We go fishing, things like that, and you're allowed to do that.
Right.
Regardless of like, if it's owned by someone. I think berry picking is one of the kind of every man's rights that we have in Finland, and that is definitely something that I notice in myself, that if I don't go into the forest, that sounds really weird, but like, if I don't go into the forest, I get really restless. So I need to have some nature around me, and even in Helsinki, which is like the big city, we do have literal forests here. Not in the very city center, but we do have forests where you can go in there and not see another person. Or like I've been in Helsinki, gone into a forest and saw a deer, and was just like, okay, there's a deer staring at me. All right.
Wow.
So nature is a very, very big thing in Finland, and we have a lot of it. So
I want to hear about the work that you do and about teaching Finnish, and let us know what you're doing in teaching, and let us know where we can find you and where we can find you on social media.
Sure thing. So I run an Instagram page called Finnish Learning. That's Finnish with 2 N's. So Finland Finnish. And that is honestly the main thing that I do. I do have students as well. I'm a teacher, like a language teacher by education, but I'm not currently teaching as my sort of day job. I'm more on the sort of curriculum planning stuff. But outside of that, then I'm running this Instagram page and just helping people learn about Finnish and learn Finnish as well, as best I can.
And where can we find you on this page? What's your handle?
It's at Finnish Learning.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On Instagram. Yeah. I don't have other pages, at least not yet, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will add a link to your Instagram page in the show notes for this episode so that people can click and find you right away.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I've had so much fun.
Me too.
Chatting with you and learning about Finnish language and culture and food and berries and saunas and reindeer meat. And this has been so like, I always like to research a little bit, but I also like to be surprised through conversation and, get to learn new things through a person and not a faceless blog post online. So
exactly.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I didn't get a chance to say, but I've been repeating after you as you've been saying Finnish words. And I like the sound of them so far. So it's always great to like try new words in your mouth and you're like, oh, that feels nice. Like that feels like this feels like words I can say and things I can do. So
yeah.
Thanks for letting me repeat after you all this time.
You're very welcome. And I mean, I know that I'm biased because it is my language, but I always kind of feel like, ASMR, where it's like you
Mm,
hear something. I think speaking Finnish is the speaking version of that. It feels really nice to
yeah,
produce those sounds that we have.
yeah,
So yeah, I agree
yeah.
with you. It's a really nice language to speak.
Yes. I like to end each episode on the same question, just to have a little bit of fun, and to give me an opportunity to practice some language. But do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Finnish to share and to teach me?
Do you want a difficult one or an easy one?
I can try both, but let's go from easy to difficult.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
up for the challenge.
that's very good. I tried to think about this quite a bit, and we have a lot of idioms in Finnish, and they're
Mhm.
very, very colorful, but also not really worth recording. They're also very colorful in, you understand what I mean. But one really nice one that I like that's very, suitable for everything, and, considering the kind of world that we're living in right now, is hiljaa hyvä tulee. Hiljaa hyvä tulee.
Hilia huva tule.
And it literally means the good comes slowly, but basically the good things are worth waiting for. And I think it's a bit similar to the English one, slow and steady wins the race.
Oh yeah.
So that's good for also if you're, a language learner and you get frustrated with your language, always just think hiljaa hyvä tulee. You're gonna get there. It's fine. It's gonna be okay. Just hang in there.
Hmm. Oh, I love that one.
That is one of my favorites, kind of in Finnish. Then the more
Okay.
difficult ones.
Okay. Okay. Do
Well,
I need a pencil? Do I need a paper and pencil?
so
Okay, let's hear it first and then I'll decide what we need.
because we have the r sound in Finnish, and a lot of kids have trouble learning it because it is a difficult sound to learn. So we have a tongue twister for practicing that, which is rn kierran orren ympäri. Rn kierran orren ympäri.
Okay. What does it mean?
It means I wrap the R around the beam. So it
Okay.
doesn't. It's not something that you would use in like normal conversation,
Mhm.
but it is a very good way of practicing the r sound.
Okay.
So
Let's take it slowly, word by word. I will repeat after you.
rn
Arran,
kierran
kierran,
orren
orren,
ympäri.
ympäri.
Very good. So
Oh.
rn kierran orren ympäri.
Arran, orran. Is that right? So far.
Rn kierran orren ympäri.
Arran. It's my memory now. It's not the words. Arren,
Kierran.
Arren, kierran,
Orren
orren,
ympäri.
ympäri.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Very good. Your pronunciation is very good in Finnish.
Oh man. Now I'm 100% convinced. I'm oh my gosh, I have to go to Finland. I have
Come to Finland. I'll take you to eat reindeer meat.
Yes, I'll be there. I will definitely be there. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Saga, for this
Thank you.
conversation. Oh, I had a blast talking with you.
Me too.
Before I let you go, really quickly, if you're in Helsinki and after you've been speaking to someone for quite some time and you're about to go your separate ways, what's the best way in Finnish to say goodbye?
The easiest way is to just say, hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
Exactly.
Oh,
Finnish
that's
isn't as
adorable.
difficult as people think. You just say, hey, hey.
Hey, hey. Oh, I love that. Oh, okay. That's it. Finland, get ready. I'm on my way. I'm on my way, Finland.
Wonderful. Tervetuloa.
Saga, hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
And I will be talking to you soon. Bye.